So today I am going to be talking about my Nonfiction November reading plans, which I'm very excited about. It's great to have a whole month that's just like dedicated to nonfiction reading in general, and I plan to turn it up. I do have some ideas in terms of what I want to read for the Nonfiction November prompts, and also I started having all these ideas for stuff that you could read that I've already read, but I decided that I'm going to do a TBR plus recommendations video. So I guess let's get to it. If you don't know anything about Nonfiction November, it's a challenge run by Olive, and I'll link her channel down below. She always has lots of really great content around nonfiction in general and really does it up for Nonfiction November, obviously. And the only real rule for Nonfiction November is you gotta read a nonfiction book, like one. So the bar's pretty low if you're like not used to reading nonfiction books in general, like, you know, you can do it, guys. However, she does put out a couple of one-word prompts to sort of get the ideas going for what you could read, or you could try to pick a book for all four prompts if you want to like go all out. I'm going to start out talking about a couple of books that I think are basically just very engaging and could be a good place to start if you find nonfiction intimidating and if you're just planning on reading a book to like finish this challenge. And then I'll go into the one-word prompts and what I'm planning on reading and some recommendations for you for stuff that I've already read, but I couldn't help myself giving recommendations. So that is what's gonna happen, and let's just get right to it. So for some books that I think would be good if you're newer to nonfiction and looking for a good read, but you're sort of intimidated by the whole thing, I have two essay collections that I think you might look into, and if you know me, you know I love essay collections in general. So the first essay collection is Take the Cannoli by Sarah Vowell. Basically, Sarah Vowell is a contributor to This American Life and an essayist who writes essays for everybody all over. She's very good at the personal essay, and she's very good at sort of doing like subculture exploration stuff, and she also writes a lot about American history. So this book in particular is a collection of her essays that are more personal and sort of go over her like reportage a little bit more. So it's not as I guess cohesive as some of her other books, but I think the fact that it focuses on that's a spoiler, sorry. The fact that it is such a varied essay collection means that there's something in here that I think will interest everybody. And she just has a very, I wouldn't say casual voice, like it's not like she's blogging or anything, but like she definitely has her own voice, which I find very compelling, and I think, you know, is very approachable, I guess. So this is a good essay collection to start with. I feel like essay collections are made for nonfiction beginners because they're all bite-sized, and, you know, if you don't like one, it's going to be over in like 10 pages. I have some weird stuff written in here, but that's neither here nor there. The other essay collection I was thinking would be a good place to start if you're new to nonfiction is I Miss You When I Blink. This book is sort of a memoir and essays written by Mary Laura Philpott, and it is a very fast read. It's very easygoing. Her writing style is, again, very sort of conversational and approachable, so nothing you need to be intimidated by, I guess. It's sort of about Mary Laura's experiences aging. She's not like old, but it's sort of about getting through your 20s and 30s and realizing that, yes, you've hit all these milestones that you like wanted and were excited about, but maybe you're still sort of feeling unfulfilled, and like, what do you do with that feeling? Is that an indication that you've been like living your life all wrong, or is it like just part of the human condition to be dissatisfied, I guess. So she talks like really compellingly about depression and anxiety in general, and also just sort of like what it means to be an artistic person when you're living modern life and you have responsibilities and like have to deal with the everyday stuff. The third book is sort of a different path. So this one is The Hot Zone by Richard Preston. This is a nonfiction story about an early outbreak of Ebola in a animal facility in the outskirts of Washington, D.C. So I think, our current modern understanding of Ebola is quite different given the outbreaks that have been happening over the last few years. And I haven't actually read this since those outbreaks started. So I'm sort of wondering how well it holds up. But the reasons why I would recommend this for somebody new to nonfiction is it reads basically like a novel, even though it's like immaculately researched and stuff like that. It basically reads like a thriller of like how the army is trying to contain this like hugely deathly pathogen and stop it from spreading in like suburban Maryland, There's a quote on the back from Stephen King that says, "One of the most horrifying things I've ever read. What a remarkable piece of work." So if that doesn't convince you, I don't know what will. This would be a great book if you don't like nonfiction because you think of it as slow or not really plot driven. This basically reads like a novel, but it's real, and that's horrifying. Okay, on to the word prompts. So basically there are just 4 one-word prompts, and I have some recommendations and some ideas for myself, and I'm not committing myself to actually follow any of my ideas. I'm just talking about them. So that's how this is going. The first word is time. And for you guys, I have such a good idea, but I've already read it, but I'm like very excited for it in general. And that book is called Time, Love, Memory. I did have this at some point, but I lent it to somebody and now it's just gone forever because that's how that works. So Time, Love, Memory is about a guy named Seymour Benzer who did this initial work to link behavior and genes in fruit flies. So I just found it really interesting. Like, it's following this guy's life, so you have a character to like latch onto and like there are stakes that you can get involved with. But in a lot of ways, the most interesting parts of this book are the explanations of the experiments and how like straightforward they are, but also like how cool it is. So I think this would be a really good one for time because it's in the title, obviously, but also it can be used for some of the other prompts, but we'll get to that. I feel like I haven't done a good job of summarizing it, but there we are. For me, for what I'm gonna read for this word, I had a sort of hard time coming up with something that I wanted to read. The closest I got was The Order of Time by Carlo Rovelli. And this is sort of, I think, a very short book or a very long essay about the physics and philosophy of time. Rovelli is a physicist, and apparently he writes very well. He writes with a lot of poetry and stuff like that. So I'm into it. It's a book that I've known about for a long time. I've been like, oh yeah, I should read that, but I've never felt like very enthused to read it. So if I find an alternative before November, I'll probably switch this one out because maybe it's not like my top priority. The next word is movement, and I am taking this to sort of be like, oh, movement in the title or movement in the book itself or something. So for you guys, for my recommendations, I have 2 books. The first one is Slouching Towards Bethlehem. It's another essay collection. Joan Didion is sort of like the first author that I read where I was like, oh, essays can be really beautiful things on their own. They're not just like something you write in school. They don't have to be 5 paragraphs, etc. So this is a good one because slouching is a movement that you can move in a slouching manner, I guess. Yeah, it's always sort of hard to summarize essay collections because obviously they cover a lot of different topics, but this one, it sort of goes over her time in California in the 60s, lots of California characters, and also she's just like a very good writer. So I would recommend reading some Didion if you haven't before. The other book you could read for this is What I Talk About When I Talk About Running. I actually just reread this one, and it's actually a quite easy read to get through, I think. I was feeling like I needed to be inspired about running again because I stopped for a while because of the masks in New York, and it's just uncomfortable. But then I'm like, I can't just like not exercise for 6 months and be fine. So TLDR, I read this. But I think this would be a really good thing to read if you're interested in running, if you need to be inspired. I will say the one little caveat here is if you're allergic to pretentiousness, I find a lot of what Murakami writes quite pretentious. Oh, sorry, I'm covering the name. So he's basically a really big, serious, long-distance runner. He runs a marathon every year and does a triathlon every year. This is a collection of essays about his experience training up for, I think, the 2006 New York Marathon. And yeah, it's just very inspiring. But I think if you know you don't like his voice, don't read it, because it does very much sound like it's written in his voice. But if you do like his voice, read it. It'll be great. Okay. Then for me, for movement, I, again, sort of like had a hard time looking through my shelves to actually find something. But I think I'm going to read A Field Guide to Getting Lost. I guess getting lost could be a movement. But basically this is a book all about wandering, like the act of wandering. And I feel like some people might find that very boring, but also I think it sounds amazing. So here we go. Let's do it. Yeah. Okay, so the third word is buzz. And this is another one that I think you could do time, love, memory for, because, hello, it's about fruit flies. Hey. I think what I'm going to do for myself is I'm going to be picking the top, one of the top books on my Goodreads for ratings. That's nonfiction. So basically, the books on Goodreads that have the most ratings, I can say have a lot of buzz because a lot of people have read them, right? And for nonfiction books, the top two on my TBR are Into Thin Air and Educated. And I'm not really sure which one of these I'm going to read, because I feel like Into Thin Air has more ratings overall than Educated, but not by a lot. And also Into Thin Air was published in 1997. So does that count as buzz? Like buzz, I feel like it should be a newer release, which I think Educated was published in 2018. So I might go with Educated. But those are my two options. And you know, you could do buzz in that way also. Like look at your TBR and see what has the most reviews. And then the final word is discovery. And again, you could use time, love, memory for this because it's about scientific discovery. I am champion. I guess I didn't fit movement into the time, love, memory. I think you could totally fit movement in, because like a lot of the experiments that they go through is about how flies need to move towards or away from certain stimuli, and that's like a behavior. So time, love, memory could fit for every single one of these prompts. You heard it here first. If you don't want to read time, love, memory, which is fine, I guess, you could also read The Tangled Tree. And this is another science book, basically about molecular phylogeny, which is sort of like the molecular biology version of evolution. And that sounds sort of boring maybe, but this guy is a really, really good writer, and he introduces a lot of very interesting characters in terms of like researchers that are like working on this, and historical figures and stuff like that. So I would recommend this for discovery. I'm trying to decide in between two books, one of which is called A Commotion in the Blood. This is a terrible looking copy because it's actually out of print, so it's like from some library that I got on Amazon. But basically this is by Stephen Hall. He's a really great author. I actually took a writing class from him once, so I like him a lot. But basically, A Commotion in the Blood is about sort of like the development of cancer immunotherapies in basically from like 1960 to 1990s in general. And I am 280 pages into this book, and I've been meaning to get back to it, but I am very bad at starting and stopping books in general. So this is one, I think this is top of the list, But another book that I could read for discovery that I've been meaning to read is Dark Matter and the Dinosaurs. I do obviously really like reading about science in my nonfiction in general, but I am a biochemist, so sometimes I enjoy reading about things that are not biology more. So basically this is about astronomy and dark matter and the origins of the universe and the origins of Earth and etc. You know, if it's physics, it's always going to be big topics, right? Yeah, I've heard really good things about this author and like her writing style, so I think that this could be really entertaining as well. I hope you can find some good books to read for Nonfiction November. I hope this was somewhat helpful or maybe gave you some ideas. I don't know. And I would love to hear what you're reading for Nonfiction November. I would love to hear if you read any of these books. I would love to hear how you feel about essay collections in general, because apparently that's like 80% of what I read and recommend. Yeah, I will see you next week with another video. Bye!